would like to share a poem with you all to inspire your imagination and willingness to transform. This poem has no title. Love awaits at the door for your enthusiasm and willingness to follow your highest inspiration, to take a chance on your rebirth, reinvention, to release the weight and be courageous in what you think, feel, and say. Find your muse, creative destiny, and enliven your spirit with life force. Challenge your life force to remember how capable you are of excellence. Grow and evolve beyond limitation. Shift awareness to what deepens your breath. And learn, study, and practice talents of your ecstatic participation. So this poem is a reflection on the heart, matters of the heart, allowing yourself to experience the fullness of your creative energy in this moment now as a fearless act of breaking down restriction and limitation so that you can remember your life force, remember the ancient teachings of your soul, as your soul has been around the block many times. And your soul has gathered so much precious experience and teachings on how to navigate through complex, complicated circumstances, situations, and events that you will have to move through in your personal evolution. And challenge and blessing to the ancient mind is the same thing. It is two sides to one coin, right? We think of the polarization of our being, masculine, feminine, and that is two sides to one coin. And that polarization gives us that friction we need to transform, right? Like the caterpillar in its cocoon, that cocoon is immense, you can say immense pressure, right? So much so that the caterpillar completely loses its identity. It completely becomes nothing. It completely disassociates with its previous form and experiences the crush, right? As literally its bones, you can say its entire organism is being crushed by the weight of transformation. But the great challenge and the great blessing is about the teaching you gain, right? The sort of wise teaching that is offered to you, right? And in our incarnations, many, we come to this physical form because we want to gather knowledge in our great remembrance of our lives. And a part of knowledge is a participation in love, right? So how we expedite our growth, how we accelerate our growth, how we create quantum leaps is through that frequency of love. And that frequency of love can be experienced in this moment now. And I think a lot of us, we carry the weight of our childhood, the weight of the collective, the society, the ideology, the belief system, and we don't quite feel as though we fit in. But we were already designed to fit naturally and perfectly with our design, our constitutional blueprint that is us and our soul and our evolution in collaboration with Earth, right? And the Matrix will present all kinds of reasons to be upset, to fear, and to be full of anxiety to the point where you lose all your energy, all your creative energy, and you're just kind of in this dull state, right? Even the stagnant state where you feel empty, or you feel like this constant itch or this constant ache to transform. But many of us, we program our mind to associate challenge as pain, right? We associate challenge as pain, and we associate blessing as this sort of great seeming opportunity that is way beyond our capability, or something that we cannot access in this moment. It is something that we have to, in the American dream, have to basically spend all our life pursuing until we retire or something like that. So I think a part of the love frequency is breaking down all of these, that core identity we have that keeps us very rigid and keeps us very mute, and keeps us very unavailable and disconnected to ourselves. Because that ecstatic participation is really about finding that sense of completion in this moment, because death is, it comes and we don't know when it's going to come, right? But we definitely in our completion, as we feel satisfied, whole, and satisfied in our lives, is when we really can allow ourselves to experience love. And I think with Guru Ram Dass and his great documentary of Guru Ram Dass, in basically his whole journey of coming to this moment in time. It's a beautiful end scene to the documentary where he's literally just laying in the ocean with his tribe, with family and friends and individuals, students who've been on this journey with him, and just laying in that ocean and just completely appreciative to this life, completely appreciative of the challenge and the blessing. So this poem is inspired by The Door, right? And how all of us, creativity, inspiration, love, soulmates, companions, are very much at the door. But a lot of us either don't feel worthy to open the door, either we create some sort of dilemma within our head of why we can't open the door, or we just don't have self-esteem to open the door, right? We don't have energy, we don't have the willingness to actually transform, right? But those who do, as we kind of crack open our self-worth and clear out the dilemma that we create, so much so the sabotage, and clear out that self-esteem, really build up that self-esteem through our life force and our practice, right, of self and other. We open that door, and there's just this flood of ecstatic imagination, just ecstatic just ideas, and even resources, either that be guides, either that be teachers, either that be resources as books or lectures. And we allow ourselves to really embrace that transformation as our, even though the challenge is probably with great blessing, right? It's the great challenge. They're quite equivalent, right? Very, very equivalent. But in our willingness to exalt ourselves for the hunt of further knowledge of the life force and the life energy in the earth muse, we start to become more intuitive and directive, more empowered in the practice that we hold in this moment now. So I think a lot about this poem, and just my reflections for the day, has a lot to do with, we need a fondness and appreciation for our spiritual practice, for either that be morning sadhana, either bowing japji, either that sort of Islamic tradition of bowing to the sunset and the sunrise. All of these various forms, these modalities on how to exalt to the self, how to liberate the self, is absolutely required. I feel like it's necessity. at this time and even moving forward is absolute necessity in order to really clear out the mind and clear out just the entire self. We definitely need a sense of liberation. But I think with liberation, as any great spiritual practice, or even reading a book, or whatever it is, taking a course, having a class, whatever that is, being a teacher yourself, there's a sense of grit, a sense of challenge that comes with that. And I think, a lot of us are a little bit nervous, or even somewhat uncomfortable by that. But in many ways, this earth is kind of forcing us out of our comforts, because our great belonging is to really sort of carve out this physical form into our visualization, into a really clear and distinct liberated channel where we can start to gather in to ourselves these precious lifetimes that we've had of magic and mystery and talent and gift and soulmates, gatherings, and just these grand ideas that want to come in. But it's a matter of fact of really harnessing and really defining that liberation within ourselves. So with blessing and with the challenge, the kind of crossroad, or the kind of threshold to challenge and blessing is liberation, right? Liberation brings challenge into blessing. Liberation brings blessing into challenge, right? It's the bridge, it's the crossroad, it's the threshold, I want to say, right? And I think, liberation is in the finest, sort of attunement of any real religion. It's the foundation, this ancient sort of tribal kind of initiation is about, in what way can I liberate my thought, my feeling, my word, and what way can I liberate it so that the thought, feeling, and word is actually becoming a pure projection of my creative force and my creative choice. And how can I practice that again? How can I create such a recitation where all that resistance I've had of my past and the childhood and the anger and the rage and the poverty, so that this becomes the primary recitation in the identity of me, so that this becomes the sort of the primary sense of life, right? And then practice that again and again, right? When we think of all the great athletes, and when we think of basketball and even soccer, it's you can see they practice it so much that it's almost like they're just flying. When you watch soccer, it literally looks like these individuals are literally just flying across the board. They're just flying in many ways, because they have created such an intimate, fond, appreciative connection to that endeavor, that sense of liberation that they have, that it's become this, literally, it just becomes who they are, right? Everything of who they are, to the point where it is thoroughly saturated in them, thoroughly embedded, thoroughly sowed within them. So we are sowing in this liberation, and a lot of us may not come from this in our childhood, or whatever social economic situation that has us in a state of anger or depression or victimization, or sadness, or I'm not good enough, low self-esteem, low energy, that kind of thing. That sowing that liberation in ourselves, and even if it's just a simple activity, a sport or hobby, something, is going to actually bring about this more enlivened state within ourselves. So then what we think, feel, and say starts to really embody a willingness to transform. And that brings us this real ancient mind of really having reserve of energy, of reserve of life, of reserve of movement, that can really invent and innovate and reinvent any situation and potentiate it into one's own victory.